Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My Karen girlfriend won't allow me to buy a car even though I need one. After that, am I the jerk for not spending time with my daughter? And after that, am I the jerk for letting my son call my best friend dad? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to stop her boyfriend from buying a car. What would you need a car for, Reddit boy? You never go anywhere. Well, neither do you. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen girlfriend won't allow me to buy a car even though I need one. So I'm 21, male, and my girlfriend is 23, female, and we currently live together. My current vehicle is 20 years old, burns quite a bit of oil, suspension sounds like it's falling apart. The entire car is rusty, the transmission is starting to slip, and the engine randomly stalls. It's got 225,000 miles. She thinks I should buy a different vehicle that wouldn't require me to get a loan. However, I found a nice compact car that's brand new and is exactly how I'd like it with a manual transmission. I've already been approved for the loan and put a deposit down because it's currently being built. I won't have it for another month, but it's not too late to back out. The reason I went for a new car over a used one is because every used car I've bought has developed an issue within a month, and I need something I can trust. The two reasons I think I could be the jerk if I follow through with the car is that it is a loan, which she said she's not okay with, and it's a manual transmission, which she's not able to drive. The reasons I don't think I'm the jerk is because she eventually wants to buy a house, and this will build my credit and help us in the long run. Not the jerk. Unless you are spending money from a joint account, your girlfriend has no say on how you spend your money. As long as you're keeping up with your financial commitments, rent, bills, etc., there's no issue here. I would definitely question why she's trying to control your finances though. OP, she just doesn't think loans are a good idea. Well then, she's entitled to her opinion, but has no right to push it on you. Unfortunately, loans are the only way to afford most big purchases in the current climate. Let me get this straight. She doesn't want you to buy a new car because she doesn't think loans are a good idea, but she wants to buy a house? Either she has a ton of money saved up, or does she want to buy a shack for a house because she's not getting a house without some type of loan? A house often doesn't decrease in value, a car does. Houses are indeed almost impossible to buy without a mortgage, but cars are. No jerks here technically yet, but at some point you're going to have to tell her you've bought a car and deal with her reaction. Ask yourself this, do you really want to hide what you're doing from her? That should define how your relationship works going forward. They're not married, not even engaged. OP can mention in passing, but he doesn't need her permission or approval. Well, who do you think is the jerk, OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. If Reddit boy told me I couldn't buy a new car, I'd buy two instead. Am I the jerk for not spending time with my daughter? I, 36 male, have 3 kids who are 12 male, 14 male, and 16 female. I spend most of my time with my boys, fishing, going on trips with them and their friends. Sometimes we even go camping. A lot of times they even sit around me and my friends when we're at the campfire. We spend a lot of time together bonding as father and sons, but my daughter does not. I take my boys to clubs like coding, American football, and basketball. I asked my daughter if she would like to go to any clubs, but she declined and I said fine by me. My daughter asked me to do things like practice makeup, fashion, etc. I have no interest. Instead, I like things like football, fishing, and building things. I frequently visit Home Depot with my sons because we are always working on projects like how we are working on building a cabin. My daughter comes around asking me to come shopping with her, which I find unimaginably boring, so I pass on the offer. My boys hate going shopping with their mother and sister, but love the things I do with them. So whenever their mother is not forcing them to come along, we are always having fun. I asked my daughter multiple times to come, but she refused. The last few weeks, she's been asking me to spend time with her, but she never does anything that would interest me. All she does with me is show me new clothes, talk about TV shows, and typical teenage girl stuff. I'm not interested in things like getting my hair done, so I do not spend time with her often. Last week, she came to me, and I refused. I think this was the last straw in her book because she was furious. She started calling me out, saying how I never spent time with her and that I love her brothers more than I care about her, which is not true. I reassured her that I love her and her brothers equally, but she does not listen. She asks me to try doing what she likes for a change, but I explain to her how I'm not interested. My wife has also called me out on this. When I told my friends, they told me it was just a phase, and their daughters have done the same thing. This calmed me down, but my daughter will not speak to me. I feel really bad. Am I the jerk? Everything you do with your kids has to be all about you and what you like. And if your kids have different interests, they're useless to you and you won't spend any time with them. You have other kids whose shared interests can reflect your self-perceived glory, and you're all that matters. Yes, bruh, no question, you're the jerk. You're the jerk. Your daughter isn't quite right. It's not that you love your sons more than her, it's that you love yourself more than all of them. It's just more convenient to spend time with your sons because they happen to be into the same things as you. Being a parent is a sacrifice. Sometimes that means getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that you don't find fun, because it isn't actually about the activity, it's about spending time together. You would be the jerk if you were actually the father in this situation, but I have a feeling this was written by the daughter. In which case, I really want to make it clear to you that your father is incredibly selfish and self-interested. If he only wants to spend time with his kids when doing an activity he enjoys, then he's only doing it for himself. This is really important for you to understand, because I imagine it feels like he loves your brothers more than you, because they spend more time together. And if you feel less loved, you may start to question your own self-worth. But it's not that you are less lovable than them. It's that your father is a narcissist who only puts himself and his desires above others, including his kids. And that has nothing to do with how much of a fantastic person you are. And if you are, by chance, the father, well, read what I've said above and realize how you're making your daughter feel. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. Don't do it, bud. None of these folks on Reddit have any clue what it means to be a man. We aren't meant to play with Barbie dolls and My Little Ponies. Mama can be the one to do that. Here's some solid advice that I hope you take to heart. Find a group of men whose values you admire, then consult them on these kinds of issues. Never seek family advice on a site like this that's full of, no offense, very sick in the head people who do nothing but project their insecurities and delusions onto others. It's not their fault they're so messed up. It took billions of dollars and a few decades to degrade our people to the level they're currently at. I joined a Freemasons lodge almost 10 years ago, and one of our most often discussed topics is how important it is that you seek advice from the right people. The folks on Reddit are definitely not the right ones. They don't even know how to navigate their own lives. How would they be able to help guide yours? Take their advice, and next thing you know, you'll be waking up with purple hair, complaining about depression, anxiety, and how you don't feel like working anymore, so you're quitting your job for mental health reasons. Bottom line, in this world, there's haves and have-nots. Never seek advice from a have-not. They will only lead you astray. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk in this story or not? Please let us know. One of the keys to building effective relationships is finding out what the other person is interested in and bonding with them over it. I learned that in a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Wow, Karen, you're smarter than you look. Too bad you're not, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for letting my son call my best friend Dad? I'm 30, male. My relationship with my wife, Sam, who's 29, has been rocky since our son Oliver was born 2 years ago. She got pregnant just a few months after we got married, and things were fine up until Oliver's delivery. I assume it was postpartum depression. Sam never sought out a specific diagnosis, but after he was born, it was like she just couldn't care less about our kid. We hadn't planned to have kids so early into our marriage, and it was scary, but I can't describe to you the all-encompassing love that comes with being a parent. The fear was worth it for me. It still is and always will be. Throughout Oliver's life, but especially that first year, I was essentially acting as a single parent. The only help I had, and I don't mean for that to sound diminishing, because this man is a godsend, was my best friend, Matt, who's 33. The plan was for Oliver to be fed naturally, but my wife had no interest in it after he was born. I was the one changing diapers and mixing up formula for bottles, and being in the house we shared felt so oppressive. Like the joys of bonding with my son were being sucked out of me because of the energy there. So I would take Oliver to Matt's. I don't want to ramble on for too long, but there have been exactly 0 times in life where Matt hasn't shown up for me. I've known him since I was 19 and can safely say that even after all that time. But this is the most wonderful thing he's given me. I could sleep soundly knowing my baby would be taken care of. I had a place of refuge. He is so good with Oliver and is my shoulder to cry on. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay him, but I'm definitely trying every single day. Things with my wife have kind of started to look up, but recent events have sent us in a huge downward spiral. Oliver was having some speech delays, but he's really been picking things up as his 3rd birthday nears. He's babbled "dada" towards Matt and I for a while now, but "daddy" has since been added to his vocabulary, and that is used to refer to us both. I have never corrected him. I checked in with Matt to make sure he was fine, and he said he was honored to be bestowed with such a title. Sam got to hear this recently when I was on FaceTime with Matt, and she basically went ballistic. As much as I hate to admit it, I did say he was more of a parent than she had ever been, which, while true, is hurtful. I need outside opinions on this. Am I the jerk for allowing him to call him dad? I think you are going to get lambasted for this one. I'm going with not the jerk for me, however. I have been hospitalized previously for depression, and I think it's amazing my now wife stayed. Crap gets rough out there, but everyone gets to be happy. That includes you. Soft toss on ask yourself if you are in love with Matt. Seems like you act as a couple. No judgment, but leave if it's what you want. I don't think anyone would be asking OP to examine their feelings if OP were a woman describing a friendship with another woman. People need to stop this assertion that men cannot be emotionally close and vulnerable with one another. Not only is it perfectly acceptable and healthy for 2 men to have an emotionally close friendship, but it should be more normalized so men feel more comfortable forming close connections with their buddies. Not the jerk, but I feel like there's a huge part of this story missing. The kid is 2 years old and you are still bringing him over there? Without more details, I'll take your wife's side and say it sounds like you are retreating to your friend's house far too much, like it's your family's house. Your wife is probably jealous and suspicious because you're really gushing over this dude and putting her down. Like really? You're putting your wife down way too much for someone that just had a kid with her. ETA, if she had these issues, have you brought them up? Has she addressed them? Do you communicate these feelings or just go to your friend's house? Seems like he's going there to get a break. He's basically a single parent with zero help. If she was so jealous, she would help with her own son. Post-party depression is a serious mental illness that she should have had counseling and maybe medication for. It's not something you will just go away so you can take care of your baby. OP needed a friend and support too, and that is great, but he should have been making sure his wife got the help she needed as well. OP mentioned numerous times for her to seek help, and she refused. She's an adult who made her choice, so now he needs to focus on his kid who doesn't have a choice in the matter. Just like anyone with a mental illness, no one can force you to get help, you have to do it yourself. OP's wife, after 2 years refusing help, isn't on him, that's on her. Well, who do you think's the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Copywriter will have a hard time finding a job with that resume. Many years ago, I worked at Kinko's, now FedEx office. I often worked graveyard shifts and had to deal with a lot of people early in the morning who hadn't had their coffee yet. For some context, overnight was the time when long machine runs were printed and tedious finishing work was done. Being the only one working until 6 a.m. when the morning crew started to trickle in, I was often in the middle of something when the customer came in and it would take me a second to get to the counter to help them. One morning around 5 a.m., I'm in the back doing some binding work. I hear the door alarm and it just put a perfect binding in the heater. This takes about 15 to 20 seconds to melt the glue and bind the pages. I yell from the back, "I'll be right out." Jerk customer yells back, "I'm in a hurry." I finish the binding and get up to the counter. Me, "Sorry about the wait, what can I do for you?" "Can I see your resume paper selection?" Our resume papers were literally sitting 6 inches away from her on the counter in a little bound book that had resume paper printed in big bold letters. I slide the book over in front of her and open it up. As she flips through it, she proceeds to complain about the color and texture of every paper before asking me the price. Me, 15 cents per copy, plus 7 cents if you want to print on the second side. "That's expensive. Don't you have any better paper for that price?" Me, "Sorry, that's our full selection of resume papers. The only other options are plain white copy paper, Astro Brights, neon colored, or cardstock. Are you going to need this double-sided or single-sided?" I could see that she had in front of her a 2-page resume, which usually printed single-sided. Which one is cheaper? Double-sided will be cheaper, but for resumes, our customers usually prefer single-sided. Just give me 50 copies, double-sided on the sandstone. I confirm her selection and head back to the copier to complete her order. I print out a proof, and as a matter of quality assurance, I give it a once-over to confirm we're not getting any fuser marks, random spots, streaks, etc. I noticed that her job title on her most recent job was something like copy waiter. I assumed she meant copywriter and confirmed as much by reading a bit of the description. Me, ma'am, I noticed your previous job title is, she interrupts me. I'd appreciate it if you didn't snoop on my personal information. Me, I apologize. I just noticed a, please just print my order. Malicious compliance kicks in. Okay. I printed the entire stack of 50 resumes and was squaring them up when I noticed lorem ipsum dollar citamet and the last paragraph on the page. At this point, I had to tell her, right? As I'm walking over to the counter to show her the missed filler text, she yells, will you please not crimp the pages? I need to hand these out. So I make it to the counter, gently placing her copies in a bag and rang her out. She did come back later to complain, but my manager assured her that we don't make it a practice to proofread customers' documents, as that's their responsibility. I worked at a Kinko's in the early 2000s, a few years before they merged with FedEx, and it was an interesting time. I left just after they merged because the new corporate environment was horrible. My store was on what you call a copy row. There were at least 4 different copy shops on the same street because we were just down from a major university. They all had significantly lower prices than we did for everything, and they weren't shy about posting them all over everywhere. So people would come in and argue the pricing all the time. Customer. So I'd like these photos printed out on glossy cardstock. It's for my thesis paper. Me. Awesome, so that'll be $1.49 per impression. Do you need us to print out your paper as well? We've got an info print that'll hammer about a dozen copies out for you in an hour. We could even set it up to interleave. Why are your color prints so expensive? That's literally theft. Me. Well, see, our printers are absolute top of the range, and the glossy cardstock is a, that shop right across the street has color prints for 25 cents. Me. They sure do, but I promise you that their printers are old, and that price isn't for cardstock, and their cardstock is cheap, so that when you print your color inserts, they will run and smear and streak. It'll look awful. This is for your thesis. Best foot for, this is outrageous. I'm going across the street. Me. Okay, cool. Pay the digital minimum, which is about $15, and just run your finger across them. They'll streak. See you in a few minutes. You money-grubbing, overpriced corporate jerk. Me. See you soon. 3 hours later. I would like you to print my thesis with color interleaves on cardstock, please. The stuff I printed over there ruined all the thesis I'd already printed, and I can't present those. Me. Absolutely. Am I the jerk for having a craving of something that makes my partner sick? I, 25 female, recently found out I was pregnant with my partner Lyle's, who's 26 male, baby. We've been together for 3 years and we live together. Lyle has ADHD, which he refuses to get treatment or medication for. He's pretty normal about 85% of the time, so I haven't really pushed it. One thing that really affects him though is sensory problems. He has a few, but the biggest one is bananas. He cannot stand the smell of a banana or the taste of a banana. He's accidentally eaten something with banana before and ran to the bathroom like a kid to throw it up. If we are somewhere and someone is eating a banana, he will claim that he can smell it in the room and make us move with the threat that he will get sick. If we don't move, he will start gagging, make himself throw up, and I've seen him start shaking too. This has happened in public before, and it's extremely embarrassing. Anyway, let me tell you what happened. I was really tired, pregnant, and hormonal yesterday, and while I was watching my show, I had a craving for a banana, which I normally avoid when around Lyle, but pregnancy cravings are just too strong to resist. He was going to get groceries from work, so I called him and asked him to get me some bananas because I was having a craving. He started begging me before he even got them to not eat them in the house, and I just got fed up and told him no, that I was carrying around his kid, and the least he could do about it, since he's not the one having to nurture this darn thing in my stomach, was get me a banana. I'd read online that this was probably the baby's way of telling me it's deficient in potassium, and that's all I could really stand to eat at this point was the darn banana, and I don't want to deprive it of what it needs. He argued back and forth, asking me to go eat it outside at least, and out of frustration, I just started crying, which made me feel embarrassed. He finally gave in to calm me down and brought it home. I'll admit, I was still really mad and upset from our argument on the phone when he came home, and I, in that moment, couldn't face getting up and going to the kitchen. When he came into the living room and sat on the couch, I asked him to peel it, cut it, and bring it to me. I really didn't think that this was such a big deal, but he blew up at me and told me that I knew it made him sick to even smell or touch. I told him that plenty of people have foods they don't like, and he either needs to grow up or seek help for his illness because he's acting like a kid and his problem with bananas is completely abnormal. We argued a bit more, and he finally got up, yelled that he was tired of my BS, and left the house. He hasn't been back yet. I get his issues are a sensitive topic for him, and when I was talking to my friend about it, she said she had an autistic sister, and what I did was a bit messed up. So Reddit, am I the jerk? I was with you until you made him peel and cut it for you, knowing how he reacts to it. You're a jerk for that. Just peel and eat the darn thing, and I'm guessing you're not far enough along that you can't grab the banana and toss it afterwards yourself. You're the jerk. Hey guys, it's Kyle here. Yes, she literally changed my name from Kyle to Lyle and thought that that was good enough. One of her friends sent me this, and I want to set the record straight because I'm beyond upset. First of all, I want to address this refuse to get treatment or medication BS. I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. It took until college to realize I needed to adapt things to how my brain worked rather than slap a medication over it and try to pretend I'm neurotypical. I adapt well in life. I graduated on the dean's list in college, and I'm doing well at my dream job and thriving as an indie person. Do I still forget about the laundry sometimes or have a hard time focusing on certain things, especially when I'm tired? Yes, and it upsets her. Does this mean I have issues? No. This medication BS started almost immediately after we found out Jess was pregnant like a month ago. It wasn't approached like, hey Kyle, I noticed XYZ that seemed to be hard for you. I think you need help with that. I was instead first asked if my ADHD was going to spread to the baby. Literally, spread was used. And second, told that I should probably take this as a chance to get it under control because she didn't want the baby to grow up dealing with any problems. Now let's get to the sensory aversions. I have been through therapy to manage it. I can now, after years, touch paper towels without my gums hurting. But bananas, I just cannot deal with. People who aren't ND and don't deal with sensory aversions don't understand that it is literally physically painful in many cases and genuinely makes me sick. I don't make myself throw up. My body naturally reacts like that. Jess has told me many times how embarrassed she is by it and how it affects her, and her solution is exposure therapy. What she doesn't realize is that's essentially the same thing as torture to me. There are some cases, like the paper towels, where I've realized it's just a little too common, but bananas are not common enough for me to sit there and do this to myself just to make her feel less embarrassed next time she wants me to try a smoothie her sister makes and lie about the ingredients. Finally, other details I think are important. I'm going to bullet these because I'm going to write too much otherwise. Jess was binge watching a show on Netflix and wanted me to bring her a banana while she watched the show on the couch. We are in a one-bedroom apartment, and the smell would probably be there for at least a day. We had gotten in an argument about my ADHD and me not having meds the day before, so this didn't seem like a sudden craving, but more a cruel jab since it was still tense. The pregnancy wasn't planned, and no, random commenter, I didn't do that. She was on birth control and it failed. She wasn't too sick to get up, she was too lazy and angry and told me to go cut it for her because I just want to watch my show in peace. I'll admit, I snapped when she insisted I cut the banana and do just this one thing for our kid to show I care, as if she didn't go out and quit her job pretty much immediately without even telling me, and I'm now dealing with all of the household expenses while she shops. I've also been caring for most of the house because she's already claimed being too pregnant from morning sickness. So yes, I was fed up with her BS. ADHD is not an issue, it just means my brain works a little different. I'm so tired of the BS that's come from nowhere. Get over yourself. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I can't be the only one who feels legit stressed out after hearing that story. Pass the pepper, darn it. A tale of bad manners and poor anger management. I like fresh ground pepper. My wife likes fresh ground pepper. My friends like fresh ground pepper. I particularly like it on my weekly Sunday breakfast, which, as it happens, takes place in the same local neighborhood diner as it has for 10 years. Alas, this diner deploys simple pepper shakers, inadequate for our tastes, so we bring along our own purse-sized mill. This diner, I should further point out, is generally patronized by regulars each Sunday morning, and we are on smile and wave basis with most of them. As usual, this past Sunday we were enjoying our breakfast, talking, laughing over stupid jokes, the usual. At the table to our immediate right was a couple of about mid-50s, same as us, but unfamiliar to us, not regulars, and the man had a loud voice. So loud, in fact, that he made our conversation a little difficult. During a lull in our conversation, I heard him say, "Pass the pepper." My friends then mentioned that they were going for a bike ride later and wondered if we'd like to join them. I thought it over, and just as I was about to answer, I heard a scraping of a chair from the next table. Suddenly, the man with a loud voice was looming over our table. "I said, pass the pepper, darn it!" He barked and reached across the table to grab my pepper mill. A cacophony of protest, surprise, queries, and exclamations followed. I managed to block his hand and looked up at him. "Hey, what are you doing?" I demanded. My friend, a very mild-mannered and gentle man, jumped to his feet and squared up. "Pass the pepper," the man snarled again. "What is so hard to understand?" I quickly slid the pepper mill off the table and into my pocket. Then I, too, stood up. "The pepper?" I asked. "You mean my pepper? That isn't the communal pepper." "What is wrong with you?" he shouted. "I want the pepper." At this point, his wife, quicker on the uptake, realized his mistake and tried to get his attention. Roy, sit down. It's not... Roy, listen," she tried. But Roy, doubling down and in high dudgeon, was not to be denied. "Get that pepper out of your pocket and hand it over now." Eyes were uncomfortably on us. Other tables were watching this play out in surprise and shock. At this point, a server approached with her arms full of someone else's breakfast. "Hey guys, not sure what's going on, but I have hot food here, coming through." As she passed, Roy shouted again, and this time threw his hands in the air in a "what the heck" gesture. It all happened in a blur, and before the server could deke, she was covered in sunny-side-up eggs, home fries, and sausage. "Roy!" the woman screamed. "Gah!" Roy shouted. "See what you did!" His wife had scrambled to her feet to assist the server, who dropped the second plate as well. My wife also got up to help, and the owner, Donna, a sweet-faced 65-year-old, suddenly emerged from the kitchen. "What is going on?" she said, alarmed. Everyone started talking at once, and Roy, Alpha Roy, shouted over everyone. "This jerk," indicating me, "wouldn't pass the pepper," he roared. Donna gaped at him for a moment. She looked at the mess on the floor, the now red-faced and furious Roy, the other customers, and then me. What? There's pepper on your table." "Roy," his wife screamed again, "apologize now and sit down." "It's my pepper mill," I said again, "not the restaurant's." "Idiots," Roy shouted. "Why didn't you say something, jerk?" I laughed out loud and looked with amazed surprise at my friend. He stared straight at Roy and said in a quiet but firm voice, "Listen to your wife and sit down." Donna looked around at the mess in confusion. At this point, approximately 45 seconds had elapsed since Roy first lurched to his feet to steal my pepper. "I think I'm going to have to ask you to leave," she said to Roy. "I can't have this in my restaurant." Roy's wife, nearly in tears, began apologizing rapidly and repeatedly. Roy started protesting and demanding that he get to eat his breakfast. Donna, sweet red-faced but tough, told him he could leave voluntarily or she could have the police assist him. "Roy, now," his wife said. She left a wad of money on the table and grabbed his arm, pulling him to the door. "I am so sorry," she said to Donna and the server. "I guess he loves his pepper too." You can't cash that check without an account. We had a hailstorm in my area and my car was pummeled with the hail. Not a huge deal, as most dentless hail repairs will do it for way cheaper than your insurance pays. Call my insurance and they scheduled me for 3 days later on a Sunday of all things. Lady shows up and takes photos and prints me off a settlement check on the spot. With a slight problem being that the check is written out to me and the national financing company I bought my car from years ago. Somehow, when I paid off my car, they never released my title and I never noticed. I now cannot deposit my check without NFC releasing their claim on my car, which has been paid off for at least 10 years by this point. After some calling around and jumping through hoops, I'm told if I go to National Bank that issued my insurance check with some paperwork from NFC releasing all claims on my car, I could cash my insurance check. Fine, but stupid National Bank isn't in my town and it's a 45-minute drive to said National Bank. I verified everything by speaking with a manager at the nearest bank and verified all I needed was the letters, my ID, and the check, and he would cash my check. I show up and head to a teller like the local manager told me to do and presented all of the required documentation. The teller asked me what my account number was. I told her I didn't have one. She informed me that checks over a certain amount could not be cashed if a person did not have an account with them. I informed her that the manager told me that I could cash this check if I showed the required documentation. She informed me that he didn't know what he was talking about and called him over. They had a nice private conversation and collectively informed me that the teller was correct and I had to have an account. Funny enough, as I walked up to the bank, a sign was informing people that if new users signed up for an account and deposited an amount smaller than my insurance check, you would get a $250 sign-up bonus. I asked what was required to set up an account, and lo and behold, it took a whole 10 minutes to set up my new account and about a week for the check to clear and to get my $250 bonus. Transferred everything but the required amount to keep the account open because you had to close out in person. I think it was $10 or under.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.